You know, Dragonflight makes a pretty good first impression. You know, it's without the heaps of systemic junk that frustrated Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands. So that probably means that the instanced content of World of Warcraft's gonna do really well. I mean, bar a bit of a blip with Sanctum of Domination, raids and dungeons are pretty damn great, right? So in Dragonflight, it's just going to be our characters, their talents, and gear. That's it! I mean, man, great for that type of content, but I still do have a few lingering worries about the game. These are worries that have built up throughout modern World of Warcraft. They are the things that I really want to see Blizzard be able to tackle in this expansion. If they do, it'll prove a hell of a lot. Now, this is not really a video about being in Doom mode, it's about being realistic, and also trying to see, are there any glimmers of hope here? Well, I've got one big glimmer of hope, and that is today's sponsor, squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming, where that Bellular Gaming code does in fact get you 10% off, which is pretty damn awesome. Now, two things for them. First, the most recent, dead handy thing was whenever Pale Beyond's reveal was upon me, I was really behind schedule, and I just knew it was going to be okay, because Squarespace was the place for me to go to build the site. Their award-winning site builder and templates made it a very, very easy experience, and I have next to zero web development experience myself. And that actually meant that I could experiment with custom CSS and code injection, things that I never would have been able to do if getting set up wasn't so quick and easy. I'm actually building a few updates to the site right now, but I actually can't show you them yet. Yeah, you'll see them soon. Now, their e-commerce setup is also just awesome. It is so easy to set up. So I've actually got a box just over there of our art books. Just spares. They've been sitting around in the office for ages. So making a listing on Squarespace and hooking that into our backend is just that easy. And all the payments and the complex things, they just handle it. It just works. Means that I can just super quickly get started. It's awesome. Squarespace is the fast and easy way for you to get a fantastic looking web presence, so make that brilliant first impression by heading over to squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming and using code Bellular Gaming for 10% off your first purchase. A big thanks to Squarespace for sticking with and supporting the channel for so long. And with that said, let's dive into Dragonflight. Patch cadence. I mean, is this not the elephant in the room? World of Warcraft's patch cadence. It's just fallen over big time, hasn't it? I mean, Shadowlands just fell to rags. BFA struggled. Legion showed us kind of what could be. I mean, hell, the first half of Mists of Pandaria really came out strong. Only for a 14-month final patch, and then Warlords of Draenor that was cut down. So look, the short-term hopium here is that Shadowlands' rapid plotting, sparse content, and, well, smaller raid count, means that content was cut from Shadowlands, which would mean that Dragonflight could be a bit more Legion-y in content cadence because they killed the patch of Shadowlands, so they got to work more on Dragonflight. Now, don't pre-order based on that hope, because even if that's true, the cycle is still something that can repeat. Now, the competition, FF14, shows us a game that is ran really damn well. They don't take big systemic risks, they kind of follow a formula a bit more, and that's meant consistent patches every 3.5 to 4 months. And that's what us World of Warcraft people should be getting. We should be getting what the competition can do with a smaller budget, right? And while I worry about this content cadence problem, there is a bit of hope, and that is in simplicity. You see, Shadowlands left the Blizzard team with 4 Covenant kits to keep balance with every patch, as well as a raft of legendaries, then domination shards, then double legendaries, and tier. And other things. So many moving pieces, and so much work that they had to do that didn't stand to the game in the long term. All Dragonflight has got is gear, tier, and talents. That's it. Perhaps then this reduction of systems bloat, and another thing I'll mention later in this video, means they will have a more developable game. One with fewer risk factors. The past does have me worry, but there are reasons to have a shred of hope. My next big worry, Great Vault dupes, they feel bloody terrible! The downside of the old currency system was that, maybe your currency would be useless because there's only a few slots covered by the vendor and that could be annoying. But hey, the other side of that is you put in a week's work and you knew what it was going towards. And some of that feels really fundamental to me. The risk just is there with the current system. And if my guild's experience with Great Vault Wednesdays is anything to go by, the Vault brings more disappointment than excitement. It seems like it's too damn risky. Now, Blizzard have said they're going to iterate on the Vault along the lines of the patch 9.2 consolation price. For me, it would have to be a large iteration to make it feel good. But I have an idea, something that could work. Backup prizes are gear tokens. The quantity would depend on how many slots of the Vault you've unlocked, and there's a gear vendor. Maybe 2 weeks of tokens gets you a basic item, maybe 3 for a key slot item like a helm or a chest. Maybe it could be faster. Hell, I mean, slap some tier into a system like this so you don't need to make another creation catalyst, maybe? I'm sure there'd be, knobs to fiddle around with, and little parameters to tweak, and, all of that stuff. But I think that it could be quite strong. My point basically is that some variation of that would allow us to have the primary benefits of a deterministic gearing system, but still give Blizzard that, moment of big luck when you open the Vault and it's got the thing you want. Could we have both things, maybe? So I'd say make gearing generally faster, fix up the Vault in a way where you can get gear from your consolation prize, then we'll be moving in a good direction. Now, why would I say just give us more gear, make it faster? Well, I already think raids feel a bit rough in loot quantity compared to Mythic Plus. I mean, at least, or especially, for normal and heroic raiders who, let's be real, we kind of do get our best gear from a Mythic Plus vault slot, don't we? But here's the thing, with no borrowed power, we're all going to be playing way more alts, aren't we? I mean, I know I want to. I would have a lot more fun in the game if gearing was a good bit faster than it is right now, but I felt more able to play a few characters. I mean, hey, what if you were able to select one bit of gear from the raid track, one bit of gear from the M+ track, one bit of gear from the PvP track? Food for thought. Point is, with so much more alt playability, I think they do have wiggle room to just be more rewarding with gear. So, on the PvE gearing side, I am worried based on the track record, but I'm not blind to how the removal of expansion-spanning borrowed power systems could let them make big strides within the already established gear paradigm. So, why did Shadowlands World Quests feel worse than BFAs? Why did BFAs feel worse than Legions? Well, in Legion, they were novel. They were also quick, and we were all snorting lines of World Quest Group Finder. BFA? Oh, no GF, right? No Group Finder. Bit slower. Shadowlands? Oh, same old design, but even slower. Blizzard got a bit confused. They made the world quests longer, perhaps not really understanding the bit that the world quests themselves weren't actually that fun. And perhaps the whole world quest system is the issue. Just a bunch of random, unconnected map markers that just get recycled by a system. There's no pace to it. It's not something you can really get into. I don't think they've really shown much understanding of what makes great MMO world content. And while games like Guild Wars 2 have innovated, and even FF14 with its engine limitations, while they've even succeeded with the likes of Bozja, WoW has just done things like ship Korthia, and that can be a bit worrying. I mean, Zereth Mortis was a really good step up, but really what I want to see is a big improvement to world content. Not just the content details, like somebody making a really cool rare mob to fight, but I mean the high-level game design loop. I think it needs a change. So it's time for a bit of a glimmer of hope here, and this is from Timeless Isle Impetus and WoW developer Jeremy Fiesel. According to Jeremy, in his interview with Game Rant, here's the quote. World of Warcraft has staffed a content team whose focus is on the overworld experience. These are individuals focusing on creating fun activities to explore and discover, engaging rare spawns, jumping puzzles, rock climbing, and dragon riding points of interest. Sounds cool. Hell, Fiesel even teased the addition of dragon racing tournaments. All that sounds pretty good. It sounds like a glimmer of hope to me. Now, I'm still a bit worried about the overall game loop. Content, though? Well, per what Jeremy said, it seems like they've got more resources than they normally have for this type of thing. Dragon racing with these new mechanics, that sounds brilliant. And with this idea of dragon riding tournaments that are taking inspiration from fishing tournaments, I mean, that does actually sound really cool. Now, they do have a lot to do to get me excited on the big top-level design of what world content looks like, because running about a bunch of world quest markers I just don't think is that fun. But perhaps they are better set up to deliver than ever here. Now, to what end is the question? For me, I want genuine evolution. Think of Guild Wars 2's events, the map-wide meta events. I mean, those get really big and intricate. But you don't even need to go that far. Patch 5.3 of World of Warcraft, set in the Barrens, was a bit of an iffy patch, but it really had a good idea with zone-wide events, like a caravan just going across the Barrens and you have to go and defend it. Things like that make a zone feel more alive. Could that idea be carried forward and make zones far more interesting and dynamic than just a list of world quests? Here's the hoping. Well, no shit, I'm a bit worried about this one. Storytelling. There's no need to recap how disappointing the story and the storytelling of Shadowlands was. As I learned from the Sylvanas novel, there are great character stories in this expansion. There's even some pretty neat lore and a few fun concepts. But any chance of actually landing those shots was obliterated by the in-game presentation. We had cinematics that didn't pay off things, it was just constant setup, 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 setup. The dialogue was beyond stiff. Characters whose dialogue was generic to the point of just being completely interchangeable. A fragmented story full of leaps that the game barely covered. I mean, just wow. Way to turn players and most of the gaming press against you. Now I get it. A deeply troubled creative director, Afrasabi, set the whole story up, but we know he was out of the picture in BFA. A middling story that is told really well can actually feel pretty good, but we didn't even get that. So this recent track record, it still does worry me. Look, the story does not have to be brilliant for a game like World of Warcraft. But if Blizzard are intent to use the A-plot as the primary means of driving forward their MMO, with patch features tending to be built around that story and themed around it, then that story had better be bloody good. And then add to that communications that I think do fall short of really making the players feel that they kind of understand how much they've botched it in recent years. And you just couldn't blame somebody for seeing all of this and just being worried. You couldn't blame somebody for seeing what is said in those PR videos and actually thinking that the developers think that their much maligned plot is actually just brilliant but misunderstood. Now, I seriously doubt the developers think like that, but in a void of communication, that's also a narrative that they've lost control over. Now, in this video, I've tried to have slivers of hope, so I'm still going to do that. There's a bit of a sliver here. I mean, first, if the sliver of hope section from the patch cadence segment of this video comes true, then they will have more space to tell their story, and that totally will help. Second, then, the in-game cinematics of patch 9.2, to be fair to them, were a total cut above the rest. Especially thinking about how those tools were squeezed into a likely rather funky game engine. You know, in the past, I just would have said that they don't have the tools to do in-game cutscenes like FF14 does. But you know what? Now they actually do. Jeremy Fiesel also, by the way, mentioned that the development team are excited for a change in pace that returns to, and I kind of quote, core Azerothian and World of Warcraft things. So I'm kind of just admitting that we all just got a bit sick of how Shadowlands got. Sounds good to me then. I'm still a little bit worried that the Shadowlands A-plot happened and say people are doing the Dragonflight A-plot, but maybe it turns out that cut patches, troublesome development, and a whole bunch of issues like that, and maybe an internal decision to refocus over to Dragonflight, maybe that's what really killed the story. We'll never really know, but at least in the case of Warlords of Draenor, its story was looking pretty damn good. Up until they had to cut it short and really move fast. So, going into Dragonflight, those are my most front-of-mind worries. Now, I'm sure when it comes to, testing time where Blizzard even wants us to nitpick their things so we can all make it better together, I'm sure there will be some worries and concerns and nitpicks there. But for me, it's basically just, is the story engaging? At least in how it pushes the Warcraft setting forward, because that's what matters for an MMO. Is the world content finally good? Will gearing needlessly frustrate the player experience? And then, most of all, can Blizzard finally put out a reasonable amount of content for our sub fee? Because seriously, Even a messy expansion like Shadowlands would have felt so much better if there was just more patch content, more features, more stuff to do, more content, more story. That just would have helped. But I think the problem with Shadowlands is, at its base level, it was deeply flawed, and the lack of content just put a microscope on that. So there we have it. And, you know, I hope you've understood that these are legitimate things that a lot of us are worried about, and how it is actually possible for a bunch of these things to be solved. There are some of those glimmers of hope. So when I go through the alpha and the beta process and I look at the news, that's what I'm looking out for. I'm looking for any signs that these worries are going to be met, that they're going to actually push the game forward in these areas. Because if they do, they'll be working the things that have really held World of Warcraft back. If they don't, we may have some problems. And that's why it's important to be aware of what potential issues are so we can give good quality feedback when the time comes. So thank you for watching. Let me know what your worries are down below and perhaps how they could be solved. And of course, thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Get 10% off your first purchase using my code Bellular Gaming and the link down below. All right, cheers, and I'll see you next time.